Right, good morning. I'm really hoping that this is going to work this morning. Do let me know if you can hear me. Let's have our jingle.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and you are listening live.
So, good morning, everybody, and I'm really hoping that my microphone is working and that you can join me on this Friday morning break with me, Poppy Gibson. So great to see we've got lots of people joining me on the chat. Yes, Tom is letting me know that he can hear me, and we have Simon here as well. Good morning. So I do apologise for the tech issues, which I think as educators, we all know can be one of the scariest bits of teaching, which is worrying if the tech will work or not. But welcome and thank you for bearing with me while we sorted out the issues my end. And I am very pleased to say that I have got two fantastic guests coming to join us this morning on the Friday morning break. We have got the fantastic Nicola Higgins coming along to join us. She is a consultant in SEND. And we also have the brilliant Julia Carr, a senior lecturer and educator coming along from Anglia Ruskin University in Essex. So just before I hand over to our guests, what is the theme for today's show? Well, I think whether you come and join us as a primary school teacher, a secondary school teacher, someone working in college or in university like me, as I am a senior lecturer in education at university level, what we all share is this need to want to support and inspire our learners. So the theme for today's show is supporting and inspiring our learners, whatever their age, whatever your classroom looks like. We all want to help our learners reach their potential. So we have got Nicola and Julia coming along this morning to encourage us to think how we can support and inspire our learners. So hopefully, without further ado, we have got Nicola here to join us this morning. So good morning, Nicola.
Good morning, Poppy. It's nice to hear you.
Yes! Oh my goodness, I'm so happy. It's like an early Christmas miracle.
We've sorted it out.
I just wanted to say as well, thank you for having no tech issues your end, which is a real pleasure.
You're very welcome.
So Nicola, I wondered if first of all, if I hand over, can you please tell us about you and your teaching background?
Yes, of course. Sorry, apologies for anybody that was listening and heard me jabber on. But yeah, I qualified as a primary school teacher from Sheffield Hallam back in 2002, and since then I've stayed in the area really. I've done supply across early years, Key Stage 1 and Key Stage 2. I've had lots of different coordinator roles, from literacy coordinator, Senko, early years lead. I've been assistant head. I've been on the senior leadership team. I've done my Masters in Education, and I have a postgraduate diploma in mentoring and coaching. And I've joined Fusion Centre, which is part of Talbot Specialist School, which is a specialist school for cognition and learning in Sheffield. And I've been working with them. We're a team of teachers who are all have got sort of trained and lots of expertise in working with children with special educational needs and disabilities. Mm-hmm. We support mainstream and specialist setups from early years right the way up to post 16, and we're kind of a really flexible team. We're a traded service, so schools buy us in, and essentially we can support them where they would like us to be. So it allows us to be really responsive for them and flexible. So some days I'm training teachers. I might be training teachers on a specific intervention, something like shape coding. I might be talking generally about dyslexia and how we can support dyslexic children with dyslexic profiles. It could be dyscalculia. It might be about absolutely anything really. We pretty much support the school as they would need. I also work one-to-one with children, complete lots of assessments and write reports. Often the reports are used to support the HCP process, and obviously to give advice and recommendations for those children in class. I work with groups of children. I can observe groups of children. I work with teachers and support staff in general. So it's a really lovely varied role, and I'm really enjoying it.
Wow, wonderful. Nicola, you sound like a very busy person.
It
My
does feel like
goodness.
that.
But what an incredible background that's led you to this point. And I love how you just threw in a master's and a few diplomas in there
As you
as
do,
well.
just as you do.
Just as you do. So that sounds fantastic. So kind of off the back of there then, I wondered, what do you really think are the barriers for schools in meeting the diverse needs of pupils with SEND? And how do you think, because most of our people listening will have learners with needs in their
Yeah.
classes, how can these be addressed?
Yeah, I think I'd be surprised if there was anybody that didn't have needs. I mean, a lot, be they diagnosed or undiagnosed, and I think that's a big barrier, isn't it? We've got waiting lists for diagnosis. We've got lots of children that we think, need to be seen by somebody in the, sort of in the medical field to think, is there something more that we can be supporting this child with? Is there something underlying there? And the waiting lists are such that we're just not able to get the children to be seen. I think it's hard not to be political a little bit, because obviously there's an ever increasing pressure on teachers and support staff, which kind of keeps being added to, and it's hard to fit everything in. As a teacher, I know what it's like. You do have to wear many hats. Sometimes you feel like you're doing so many different
Yeah.
roles.
Yeah.
It's hard to actually focus on the children that you feel sometimes that need your support. Funding's a big one. We're
Yeah.
constantly, as you well, we think, oh yes, we're getting some more money for schools, and then we realise that actually it's been taken away by something else, and that is a real hardship for schools. Having the money to staff appropriately, having the money to resource appropriately, it's really, really tough. And just time, because again, they're
Yes.
all kind of linked, really. We just don't have time to implement things. We think, we sometimes get a moment to reflect on a lesson, and we think, oh gosh, if only I'd have done X, Y, and Z, that might have helped that person there. Or, next time I'll make sure I've got X, Y, and Z in place. But you simply don't have the time, because we have got
Yes.
so many hats that we're wearing.
So true. And Nicola, I think just like with anything in life, it always comes down to time and money.
It
So I
does,
think
doesn't it? Yeah,
you've
yeah.
summarized it quite well. But no, thank you. That's really interesting. So my next question really, how do you think schools can work with families of pupils with SEND in the most effective way?
Yeah, so I think communication is key here, and I've been, I've been on that sort of Senko side, and it's sometimes really hard to establish relationships, because of course, sometimes we're the first people that are saying to parents, actually, we think there might be something underlying that's causing a barrier to learning for your child, and that can be quite a scary thing as a parent, to hear that actually we think your child might have special educational needs and needs to be put on a special education needs register, and needs to be monitored. That's a real scary issue. So I think it's about being honest, open, and trying to have that open door policy where those lines of communication are kept open as best they can. You're trying to develop trust. It's really important that we have that strong relationship of trust with the parents, and we do need to have a good relationship with them, because we're all sort of stakeholders really in trying to support that child to meet their potential, and it's really important that we know with each other what's going on. I think we need to make sure as educators that we include lots of positives as well, because we're forever looking at what's next, and that can
Yes.
give a really negative overview to parents sometimes. I feel sometimes that we're constantly saying, well, they can't do this, they can't do that, they can't do this, so we're trying to do this, that, and the other so that they can do that. Well, actually, the likelihood is that child's got a huge number of strengths, and it's just that perhaps our education system doesn't necessarily flag them up in a way that there would be. I mean, we've got children that are amazing dancers, amazing sports
Yes.
people,
Yeah.
amazingly creative and what have you, amazingly orally. Sometimes they just find it hard to get it down on paper, so it's about making sure that those positives are heard too. They feel sometimes, I think parents sometimes feel that they only ever hear from schools when things go wrong, and we want to kind of
Oh my goodness,
avoid
yes.
that.
That's so true. I think that's one thing that I learned when I was a primary school teacher was don't only contact the parents and
Yes.
carers when there's something
Yeah.
negative. Like even if it's as brief as I remember, at 3:15 when you're dismissing the class, make sure even if it's making eye contact with the parent,
Yes.
putting a thumbs
Thumbs
up,
up. Yeah.
saying they've had a good day, it's so valuable. You are so right. And I think what you're saying is so true. It's that partnership. And I love that word you use, Nicola, stakeholders. The fact we're all stakeholders in that learner's life, that is so true. Like, we all want the best for them. And it's only when we communicate that we can really kind of figure out what the best is, isn't it?
It is, and I think sometimes parents have got negative perhaps views of their own from their own learning journey, and I think it's really hard for some parents to come into schools and actually to have those conversations and recognise that we're all on the same page and that we are all working together because of maybe negative connotations they've had from their own past.
Yeah.
So it is about breaking those barriers down. But and we can do things like lots of schools hold coffee mornings, where it's like a drop-in, lots of cultural and community events, signposting parents for practical support, trying to kind of get into into see the people that they need to be seen, because of course we've got to remember that not everybody will know what to do in these situations and
Yes.
don't realise that there are actually lots of support services, and some of them are charitable organisations that can support them if they're going through something. So it might be that they've received a diagnosis for ADHD, for example. Well, there will be charities that are local and support groups that are local that can help that parent. And even there are respite groups. There are lots of different people that offer, for example, in Sheffield, we have access to things like, local play centres will put on autism friendly play sessions where, you can go and parents can know that they're with other parents who just get it and can have a chat and have that support on that side of things as much as
Yeah.
support in
So
schools
true.
as well.
So true. And I love that as well, Nicola, what you're saying, that when we have our child diagnosed with a special need, it can be quite a worrying and isolating feeling. But just
Yeah.
to remember that in addition to the school, that there are all those agencies and support services and charities. That is great advice. Thank you. So if we kind of focus maybe on you and your role as consultant teacher in SEND a little bit more, then how do you kind of work with schools and ensure that you meet their individual needs?
Yeah, well, we when we sort of take on a caseload of schools, if you like, and we go to the school, we have a planning meeting, often with them, normally with the Senko, and often with their head teacher or senior leadership as well. And we have a good chat really, and get to know each other, and we can go and have a look around the school, and if we've not been before, and find out what are the needs of the school, where is it they're wanting to go, because as well, schools have got development plans, they've got lots and lots of things in place to monitoring and strategies and what have you that allow them to tell us exactly, we're trying to improve reading, we're desperate to improve reading, we feel that, we need to, that's the way we need to go, can you support us with that, and the children that, are struggling with reading. So then we might kind of, we'll support them to help learners with special educational needs in reading, and we can have a think about maybe interventions or supports that they need in terms of training and what have you. Or it could be that they've got children that they're wanting to apply for an EHCP, so it might be that we need to do some more formal assessments with the child to sort of work out what is their learning profile, how can we support that child in class, and where can we go with this child. So we develop relationships with the schools essentially and work with them to find exactly what it is that they want. We kind of, sometimes we're a critical friend really. We recommend reviews of certain practice. We sort of think sometimes we can see we're kind of in a really privileged position because we're an outsider going in. We can see an area for improvement or attention that perhaps has been overlooked, because when you're in it can be kind of all encompassing, and sometimes it does take that person that's outside to say, have you thought about doing X, Y and Z?
Yes, so true.
More often than not, they're like, oh gosh, I did that, I used to do that all the time, and it's just
Yeah.
something new has kind of taken over, and that bit's kind of been put to the side, and it's sort of about being open and flexible really. So sometimes we go in expecting to do one thing, and another, we end up doing something completely different. But we listen to the needs of the school community there, and we're kind of making suggestions rather than just sort of waiting for them to ask for certain types of work, because sometimes schools don't know what they need.
Yes.
And it's, that allows us to kind of go in and say, right, well, I've noticed that with the children that I've been working with, we seem to have an area of need in terms of sentence structure and, blah, blah, blah. Let's have a think about introducing some shape coding, because I think that would work really well for your learners. That, and it's about kind of getting to know the schools there. So more often than not, we tend to work with the same schools, although we, as a team, it's great because we can call on each other's expertise and what have you. lots and lots of support in terms of what is a quality first teaching and how can we offer that, and supporting newer teachers who perhaps haven't had another barrier really, initial teacher training. It doesn't always, as you know, it's so packed jam full of everything, it can't
Yes.
always give as much as it needs to. Perhaps we would say, oh, you need to do lots and lots of special educational needs teaching in ITT, but you just can't shoehorn everything in. So sometimes we're working with maybe newer teachers who perhaps haven't developed that repertoire yet of things that are just general quality first teaching, in terms of offering visuals and supports in class really. So it's a really varied role, and it really does, it can be quite bespoke really for the school.
Yeah, it sounds fascinating. So really I've just got one more question for you really then, Nicola. You told us kind of all about your work and about the work Fusion does. I just wondered, for any teachers listening, or trainee teachers who are maybe thinking about getting into SEND support, what kind of is your best advice, or just generally, what would be your top advice for teachers out there in the classroom?
I kind of think it's confidence, a lot of this. I think sometimes we just we feel that we have an area, we're very good as teachers, aren't we, being our own critical friends, but we're sometimes not very friendly towards each other, to ourselves. So I think it's about having the confidence to think, do you know what, let's pare things back, let's slow down our language, let's slow down our think about the vocabulary that we're using, let's make sure that our classroom environment is conducive to good learning for everybody, because what supports a child with SEND will actually support everybody. It's not going to harm anybody having a visual timetable so that the children understand what's happening and what have you. I think it's about kind of ensuring that your environment's right and that we're actually thinking about those learners, because I think sometimes it's really hard to worry about, it's really easy, to worry about the pressures that we're getting from externals, like worrying about Ofsted and worrying about something that actually isn't there. And our learners are with us all the time, and we need to focus on the learners then. And by having that by looking at the learning that they're at that point, and by thinking, right, how can I actually support them in class right now, sort of paring it back really. I think that's
fantastic. I love that. And I love that sentence you said in there, Nicola, focus on the learners, because I think when we're educators, there is so much, we're working within these structures. There can be a lot of paperwork, a lot of planning. But if we focus on the learners, I think you can't go wrong. So fantastic final words. Thank you so much. And Nicola, I just want to thank you so much for coming to join us today and talk to us about the amazing and inspiring work that you are doing. And hopefully you'll stay in touch. And is there a way people can maybe follow you or contact you if they wanted to, or find out more about Fusion?
Yeah, so I mean, we're predominantly based in South Yorkshire, but we do all sorts. So we're on Twitter. We're at Fusion Send Hub, and we also, if you Google Fusion Send Hub, you will find us too. So I'm sure you'll find us that way if you would like to. But just because you might live in, I don't know, Aberdeen or somewhere, I noticed somebody, I think from West Sussex there, and somebody I think even said Saudi Arabia. We would still be more than help. That was the one great thing that came out of the pandemic, was that we're now all adept at Zoom and remote things like this, so we're happy to talk to anybody.
Fantastic, thank you. And SEND is a global phenomenon, so thank you so much, Nicola. Thank you. We're going to go to the news now, but have a fantastic weekend when it arrives.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nicola. Bye.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, a leading publisher of books, directories, educational guides and magazines specifically aimed at forward-thinking schools in the UK and beyond. Have you checked out their latest releases? Don't miss out! Visit johncattbookshop.com to explore their full range of titles and advance your own professional development today. Happy reading!
This episode of Teachers Talk Radio has been made possible with support from Witherslack Group, the UK's leading provider of SEN education and care. They're here to support you too through an ever-growing offer of free resources, including webinars, podcasts, articles, and events aimed at supporting teaching professionals like you. Visit their website at www.witherslackgroup.co.uk to find out more. This is Teachers Talk Radio, and this is Teachers Talk Radio News.
The Morning Star reports on claims being made by the union Unison that school support staff are using their own money to help pupils and families cope with crippling living costs. A survey of more than 6,000 workers, including teaching assistants, caterers, cleaners and librarians, reveals that many are helping students buy food, uniform items, shoes and stationery. The findings were published to coincide with the union's annual celebration of school support staff, known as Stars in Our Schools. The survey also indicates that 98% of those questioned are concerned that their own pay is not enough to cover the spiralling cost of living. 1 in 8 workers say they have used food banks within the last year, and 27% have taken second or even third jobs to help make ends meet. 50% of those polled also said they were actively seeking other jobs in order to achieve higher pay. In Scotland, the EIS union has announced 16 more strike days planned for next year, as it continues to put pressure on the Scottish Government to increase pay. The action will take place over 16 consecutive days in January and February, with teachers in 2 local authorities walking out each day. The first day of strike action was held on Thursday the 24th of November. A further national strike day is planned for the 10th of January for primary, special and early years establishments and the 11th of January for secondary schools. Unions stated that further action was required because of a lack of willingness to negotiate by government. In related news, an estimated 70,000 university workers embarked on strike action over pay and working conditions. Those striking included researchers, academics and administrators, as well as caterers, cleaners and other support staff from Unison and Unite unions. The university and college unions say that staff are at breaking point due to poor pay, working conditions and job insecurity. It is thought the industrial action has affected as many as 2.5 million students and is being reported as the biggest strike in UK higher education history. Further action is planned for next week. The strike action is being supported by the National Union of Students, but Robert Halfon, Minister for Skills, Apprenticeships and Higher Education in England, described the action as highly disappointing and urged all sides to work together to reach a solution. Staying with higher education, Universities UK has released a statement in response to speculation that the UK government may look to reduce international student numbers. It comes after Downing Street said PM Rishi Sunak is considering a variety of options to control immigration, including looking at the issues of student dependence and low-quality degrees. The comments followed data indicating higher net migration up to June 2022, with foreign students being one of the biggest driving forces. Vivian Stern, MBE, Chief Executive of Universities UK, said, "Cutting international student numbers would run directly counter to the government's strategy to rebuild the economy." She went on to say that international students make a net positive contribution of at least £26 billion per year and sustain jobs in towns and cities around the UK. The full statement can be found on the Universities UK website. Over the last few weeks, we've reported regularly on the World Skills Competition, and this week the results of the UK national finals were revealed. FE Week carries full details of the story, but the results were broadcast from Channel 4's Steph's Packed Lunch studio. Steph McGovern announced over 200 bronze, silver and gold medal winners across 63 categories. In total, 217 young people were recognised, up from 186 last year. The competition highlights the vital role of colleges and organisations offering apprenticeships in growing a high-value skills economy, as well as supporting young people to achieve excellence in their chosen field. This has been your Teachers Talk Radio News with Joe Fox.
This is 2 Minute Tech with Steve Woods, your tech briefing on Teachers Talk Radio.
Hello, it's the longest, darkest term. It's cold, it's wet. You go to work in the dark, you come home in the dark. Is there any tech out there that can help us get through this term? Of course there is! Meditation is known to give you a healthy mindset, and the knock-on effect from that is better well-being. The Muse headband can help you on your mental health journey by bringing meditation into your daily routine. It monitors your brain activity during meditation sessions, which you can view using the Muse app. The headband itself uses a sensor to provide feedback on how your mind works as you meditate, ensuring you keep your mind focused and on meditation itself, not exterior problems or thoughts. After your session, the band uses the data collected on your brain activity to provide advice on how to control your breathing better and reach your calm space during sessions. Impact on the pocket is big, with this device weighing in at over £200, and I'm not sure it'll help you block out any wet break times, but it might be something to consider for when you get home. Okay, meditation may not be your bag. How about being able to get to sleep faster? And I don't mean the go to bed and be asleep before you hit the pillow. I'm talking about trying to get back to sleep when you wake up in the night and your brain starts racing. Definitely something for the more sensible budget. At £30 to £40, the Dodo is a little device that claims to be able to get you to sleep in 8 minutes. It uses light to encourage deep, calming sleep. With a bit of further research on a popular shopping site, I found out that over half the reviews said it worked for them, and a few reviews that were negative seemed to lack perseverance. Want a free way to just vent? Instead of inflicting your day on colleagues or loved ones, why not make a journal or blog? Keep it to yourself or put it online for the world to see. Obviously, you may not want to identify yourself in a public forum, but having a good old rant is known to make you feel better. You never know. You may even find a solution to the problems you're having while reflecting. There are lots of free blogging tools out there, or even create a profile or group on social media. Get it off your chest. As always, I'd love to hear from you. Do you have any tech for well-being? Let us know at TTR 2022. I'm Steve Woods, and that was 2 Minute Tech.
2 Minute Tech with Steve Woods, your tech briefing on Teachers Talk Radio. This is Teachers Talk Radio, and you are listening live.
Thank you there to Steve with that 2 Minute Tech. Always enjoy those tips for little gadgets and ways that we can continue to improve our daily well-being. So welcome back to the Friday morning break here on Teachers Talk Radio with me, Poppy Gibson. And thank you again to Nicola, our first guest, who spoke to us before the news there about how we can support learners with SEND. And now for the second part of the show, we are welcoming the fantastic Julia Carr, Senior Lecturer in Primary Education. So good morning, Julia. Hopefully, Julia will be coming to join us shortly. Yes, Julia, if you want to just try calling in again. I know Julia's been listening in from the start, so might just need to rejoin. Julia is one of my colleagues at Anglia Ruskin University here in Essex, and it was as soon as Julia told me about some fantastic work she's been doing about community organising that I just knew that I needed to bring her on the show today to talk to you about her brilliant and inspiring ideas. I'm not sure if community organising is something that any of you listeners already know about, but if you don't, then hopefully you will find this really interesting, and it will make you think how community organising is something you might want to bring into your very own classroom. So 1 second, we're just going to see if we can have Julia to come and join us. The one thing that I know Julia's going to raise, but just in kind of concerns of time, one thing that I think community organising does well is it helps us to bring global issues to the kind of local primary classroom level or the college or university level. So I'm not sure whether you with your learners are currently talking about any of the big global issues that we have, but Julia is going to talk to us about how she is getting her students to think about making those daily changes that can support those bigger global issues. Hi, Julia. Welcome.
Thank goodness for that.
Like I was saying earlier, technology isn't always our friend, so welcome. No. You're here, that's all that matters. So welcome, Julia. I was just talking to our listeners about a little bit about what community organising is. I haven't given too much away because I'm going to leave it to you.
Thank you.
But maybe before you talk to us about community organising, it would be great if you could introduce yourself to us a bit more and maybe tell us a little bit about your background in education, please.
Yeah, well, my background in education hasn't been that long. I came into it as a very mature starter, and it all came about really kind of linked to what Nicola does, with fighting the system to get my autistic son the support that he needed, and finding out just how hard that was. And it really lit a fire about wanting to change the world as it was and to change the system. And that led to me going back to university to study. And I've kind of stayed there. I went to study, and then I started lecturing, and now I'm loving the job I do. And I've just am on the point of completing my PhD, looking at autism. Still wanting to change the world, which kind of led
Julia,
me
you are changing the world.
And that's kind of led me into community organising, and thankfully ARU has kind of allowed me to expand my role to bring that to the university, which is very exciting.
Fantastic. So do please enlighten us. What exactly is community organising? I think I've given it a really poor explanation. So over to you.
Well, it's not that complicated, really. It's just a way that people who aren't happy with the way things are in their community can kind of come together to make change. And it's really based on building relational power. So we build relationships between local people and local organisations, so that together they've got power to hear their voices heard, and kind of hold the people that are in power to account and get changes made. And in order to kind of make that happen and bring people together, at ARU, we're part of an organisation called Citizens UK. And they work nationally and locally to kind of help bring people together and to support them in developing ways to make that change in their communities.
That sounds fantastic, Julia. Thank you. So I guess my next question has to be then, how can we embed community organising?
Well, I guess there isn't one way of doing that, and different organisations do that in different ways because of who they are and the people that are involved. But I guess from an educational institution's point of view, I've seen lots of schools that develop this, and they have social action clubs within the school, primary and secondary schools, and FE colleges. And it helps the children understand about local issues, so it engages them with their local communities, to see what they would like to change and how they might go about that change. And it really develops leadership skills within very young people. I was at an assembly in Peterborough a few weeks ago, and they had representatives from a primary school up on the stage. And
Wow.
a little girl about 6 years old stood up and said, "I'm a part of a social action club at school, and it helps me make changes." And it was such a powerful moment. This little child holding adults to account for maybe not really doing the same thing was incredibly powerful.
Wow, that's fantastic.
But at ARU, we kind of started small. We started with one module in particular, and now we're expanding that right across the university and developing our students as change makers, but obviously also developing it from a research side with participatory research, with the local community to kind of understand the issues a bit more and how we can respond to them. So there's lots of ways that we can embed community organising across educational institutions.
Fantastic. And I love that word you used there, Julia, change makers. Like that just sounds so exciting. Like gives me goosebumps. Like, ooh, like this is something exciting, a way that we can encourage the future generation to be wanting to make these changes. That is incredible. So this sounds really interesting what you're doing at university level. Could you maybe tell us a bit more about this current module?
Yeah, so ARU 2 years ago now, we have a whole suite of what we call Ruskin modules, and they are interdisciplinary. So it means that instead of just staying within their course teams and the peers that they have around them, all of our year 2 students have to take a Ruskin module. That means that they work with students across the university, and all of our Ruskin modules at their core have the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And mine is focused on community organising. So the students we give them taster training in community organising over a number of weeks, and then they have to identify an issue in their community, link it to one of the Sustainable Development Goals, so that they kind of understand that there are global issues, but that those global issues translate to problems in their own community. And then they have to use their community organising training to plan how they would go about responding to that issue and trying to make a change for the better. So what change would they like to see? Identify who holds the power to make that change, work out why those people could be persuaded to make that change. So we talk to them about self-interest and in a positive way, kind of identifying why power holders might want to make change, and how then they would go about getting a seat at the table to negotiate with those power holders and get them to make changes. So we're developing skills in them that are going to be useful in whatever careers they go into. Because that art of being able to negotiate and get people to change in the way that you want them to change is useful in no matter what you do. But also, hopefully, a number of them will go on to actually take that into their communities and to start making change in their communities.
That's fantastic. You're so right. I think these are skills that are lifelong. They have lifelong value, don't they? So if we can develop them in our younger learners, this is fantastic. Are you able to share with us maybe one of the little changes that your students are working on, if that's allowed?
Yeah, no, that's fine. So actually, it's good timing because we've just decided what project that they would like to take forward after the module's finished. So
Oh wow, okay.
they're keen to carry on working after it's finished. So the students in groups had to present their ideas, and then they voted on which idea they would like to take forward. And the one that they'd wanting to take forward is to work to install reverse vending machines in both Chelmsford and Cambridge campuses, and then they have major plans to get them installed across the 2 cities, but we're going to start with the campuses and just start small. And that idea is that there are machines installed where people can recycle plastic bottles and get monetary credit for the recycling that they do. For those of your listeners who, like me, are old enough to remember the times that you could take your glass bottles back to the shop, it works very much on that idea. You recycle and you get financially rewarded for it, which kind of, it helps with recycling and sustainability, but it also helps in a very small way with the cost of living crisis that our students are going through at the moment.
Definitely. And I suppose it must also help. I mean, hopefully most of the students will be motivated to use the reverse vending machine, but presumably if someone had thrown a bottle, like littered, presumably some people, if they're very active, might want to pick up other people's rubbish and put that into the vending machine. So
absolutely,
it's a great idea for just like keeping the environment kind of tidy and safe. This is a great idea.
Yeah, and hopefully embedding good habits in people so that they do it even when they're not close to a vending machine, so that they get used to the habit of not putting things on the floor.
Definitely. And hopefully then, like you say as well, developing the habit of not doing it just for like monetary reward,
Yeah.
but just because
Yeah,
this is
exactly.
fantastic. I love this. So this sounds really inspiring. What would you say to any of our educators listening, whether they're, I mean, primary teachers, secondary, college, or HE like us? What if they're feeling inspired from your brilliant words today about getting involved with community organising? Like, where do they start, Julia?
Well, I think the easiest place to start really would be Citizens UK, because that whole infrastructure then and the training and everything is there for you. And there are citizens groups across the country, and there are more starting all of the time. So they could look on the Citizens UK website, which is just citizensuk.org, and have a look to see whether there are any near them. Because Citizens UK, as I said before, they offer training. They provide community organisers in an area that will help guide local groups onto how to get engaged. And in where I'm based in Chelmsford in Essex, we've
Mm-hmm.
got community organisers that are working with schools and colleges, and also obviously they're working with us at ARU to kind of guide them through the process, to give them training and to help them identify kind of potential leaders. So for us, that's staff and students, and like I said before, for schools, that can be very young children right the way through. The Peterborough Assembly that I was talking about, two of the people that ran that assembly were secondary school pupils, and they were on stage the whole time, and they were absolutely amazing with what they did.
Wow.
And they had been given training by Citizens UK to get them to that point. But it's very much about, not only is it about making change in the community, but it's about developing leaders from the community as well, and that the community organisers are there to help do that. If they go on the website and there isn't anything in their area, they can absolutely email Citizens UK and say, okay, I'm here and I'd like to start something. Or if they want to get in contact with me as well, I can funnel that through to the right people at Citizens as well. But I would say go for it. It's been the most amazing thing to be involved in.
Wow.
And the
It sounds
reaction
it.
of our university students that I've spoken to, it really has proven that kind of getting involved in this makes them feel more powerful, and that they can actually make a positive change, rather than just thinking that life's not what they want it to be, but they don't know what to do about it. So it can have a very positive impact on the way that they feel about life in general, really, and that it's not all outside of their control.
Definitely. And I love for those students you've been working with who've come up with that reverse vending machine idea, like just to see when those machines become installed on campus that they have made a kind of tangible change. That is so exciting. And exactly what you're saying, Julia, if this is going to make people ambitious, it's going to give people, ambition and aspirations that they perhaps might not have seen in themselves before they realize that they can make a change. That is just so powerful.
Yeah, I mean, have I got time to tell you a short story about something that happened last year, just to...
Yes, please do. We've
Yeah,
got
okay.
5 minutes. I love a story.
Okay, right. Okay, so last year I ran the Ruskin module for the first time, and one of the assignments that they have to do for it is to write a reflection on their feelings through the module, their feelings about working with people that they wouldn't normally have worked with, what went well, what they would have done differently next time, but also on how it has changed them as people. And one of the students included a reflection on the way that it had helped him make change with people that he cared about. And his background, his family came from India, and his family still had relatives in a very rural part of India. And they were, most of the area, it was very rural, and most of the area was farming. It was owned by big landlords. The standard of living was very low, and they wanted to make change, but they didn't know how to go about it. So he flew back to India to help organise his local community out there, to approach the landowners and to negotiate a change in the way that they were living, that the rules that they were living under. And there's still a long way to go, but they have begun to make change, and they have
Wow.
begun to live a better way. And he was a second year undergraduate student who had no intention of coming on the module to make that change have that international impact, but felt empowered to be able to go and do that. And it was the most amazing thing to read from a student.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it was great.
Oh,
And
you're giving me
all,
goosebumps just hearing that story. I'm so glad you shared it with us.
not all of the students are going to do that by any means, but it does make a difference to a lot of them. It makes a difference to them as people.
Wow, wonderful. And I think you're exactly right, that if it's showing people that, and that word used there, if it empowers people to even make those small changes in their community, it's when we all, make those changes that we see those bigger global changes, isn't it? So what fantastic work you're doing. Thank you so much. I know, Julia,
I'm really enjoying it.
you said there very kindly that if people wanted to contact you, you'd be happy for them to get in touch. Is there a best way that you'd be happy for listeners to get in touch with you if they have something related to community organising?
Yeah, I guess probably just email would be easiest. It's just julia.carr@aru.ac.uk. And
Fantastic.
happy to try and signpost people, or if there's anybody in Essex or Cambridge, then I'm more than happy to get you involved with what we're doing there.
Oh, that's so very kind of you. Thank you, Julia. And just before you go, I've got a final question. I know I asked Nicola kind of what was her advice for people, and I know that you've already kind of said your advice for people wanting to get in touch, have a look at the Citizens UK website. Have you just generally got any other advice? I think your journey into teaching is such an interesting one. Have you got some advice for those people just starting out? Any listeners who are trainee teachers or ECTs, NQTs? What are those kind of final words of wisdom, please?
I would say know what you're passionate about, know what makes you want to get up in the morning, and then find a way of bringing that into your work. And that way it'll make at least part of your work fun and fulfilling, and it'll be so worthwhile.
Beautiful. And I can hear your passion is what you're doing. So I think that's what makes us love our job, isn't it, even more? So I know Nicola said, focus on the learners, and you've heard it here from Julia Carr, to find your passion. So just thank you both so much for joining us. I hope you've enjoyed talking to me today.
It's been wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And to all our listeners who've joined us, all the fantastic people commenting in the chat this morning, great to have you with us. And hopefully I'll be back for another show with you in 2 weeks' time. So wishing you all a beautiful weekend, and take care, everyone.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and you are listening live.